professional networks being really, really powerful and really important for career success. And is people talking about, structures around first, second, third line? How are they approaching regulators?
This is true GRC practitioners. There's lots of genuinely really interesting golden nuggets around GRC.
Who's recommending you? Who's introducing you because there's a business opportunity? That's what Risky Women is building, is those powerful connections that really, give you advocates or help you with your next move.
Welcome to this special edition of the Spotlight on Women in GRC podcast series, counting down to the Women in GRC Awards 2026, happening on the 2nd of July. Backed by key sponsor CoreStream GRC, the series celebrates the women shaping governance, risk and compliance, exploring their stories, perspectives and the changes redefining the industry. In this special feature episode, we're shining a light on Risky Women, a global community and platform amplifying women's voices across risk, regulation, compliance and leadership that fosters collaboration, mentorship and advocacy. I'm your host, Lucy Montague, and today I'm joined by Kimberley. Hello, Kimberley.
Hello, Lucy. Thank you for inviting me to be part of this.
Oh, it's such a pleasure. Kimberley, could you start off by introducing yourself and giving us an overview of what Risky Women is?
Absolutely. So I am Kimberley Cole and I am the Chief Risky Woman. So I founded Risky Women back in 2014. Our mission is connect, celebrate and champion women in governance, risk and compliance. And we do a whole range of different activities that sort of fit under those three pillars of connect, celebrate, champion. So live events to connect. We have Risky Women Radio, which is all about celebrating and championing, but also helps people connect. Our Risky Women Rights competition. We have our monthly check-ins, which are part of our membership fee, which are called Rev-Ups, which we talk about elevating the superpowers of our Risky Women. So, we think everyone's already pretty fabulous, but how do we keep adding skills and strengths and perspectives and ideas? So we have Rev-Up sessions. And we also partner with the Association of Governance, Risk and Compliance. So if you become a Risky Woman member, you get a GRC membership, and they have a whole range of other events and training and a whole range of things that also help us with our connect, celebrate and champion. And then probably one of my favorite things is our women to watch list as well, which is, a key pillar to helping us raise the profile and show the incredible women in the industry.
Yeah. Our director, I can't remember her title exactly, she's our DPO, Information Governance Queen, and she became a Risky Woman, and we were all so pleased when that came through. It was such a delight.
That's great, I love that.
Yeah. So Kimberley, if we go back to the beginning, so 2014, you've been doing this a fair while. What inspired you to launch Risky Women, and what gap did you see in the GRC risk landscape at the time?
Yeah, I think what inspired me really was just the women that I was meeting in the industry. So I started Risky Women when I was at Thomson Reuters, and I had originally been running our financial side of the business across Asia, and then I was asked to take over our risk business. So it was the whole area is called financial and risk. And so I went off to see, I was like, give me a list of our top 50 customers. I'm going to go and see them, see, how we're doing, what they need, etc. And when I went to start visiting those customers, there was more women that I was meeting as, chief compliance officers, chief risk officers, etc. And so I would jokingly around the office say, I'm off to see another Risky Woman. And we used to run big events called the regulatory summits that went around the globe. And so we started sort of following those events and started to do sort of invitation only breakfasts and things like that. And we brought together the sort of ecosystem of, the customers, we had our own customers, but we also had regulators, we had governance professionals, people involved in ethics. We were sort of building out this sort of entire connections of government and regulatory affairs people. And obviously at the time, because we're part of the Reuters stable of brands, we could bring the journalists in to talk. So we did a lot with, at the time, I think when we launched, our bureau chief for the region was a woman, and so she came and spoke to the audience there. And after that first event, everyone was like, oh, we love this peer-to-peer engagement, sharing ideas, talking about what's going on. So I think it was the women, but also the gap side of it that you said was, I was increasingly frustrated by conferences that I saw that had manels, so male-only panels, and also very few female keynotes. And then I also started investigating the printed press, and in a lot of countries you were still seeing very few women bylines, but also less women are quoted as sources and experts. And so those gaps made me think we had the opportunity, and that's why I sort of came up with this mission of connecting, celebrating and championing, because I see there's multiple things that we can sort of tackle with Risky Women.
I love that. I've never heard the term manels, but yeah, that really rings true. Even today, I'm like, yeah, I've seen some manels.
Especially because some of them, that there's so many women that could speak to that topic.
It's
so it's incredibly frustrating.
Yes, I know. And then, yeah, it is that thing of like, then you get a predominantly female panel when it is something like Risky Women or Women in GRC, but the day-to-day ones, the gap is still there 12 years later, which is just ridiculous.
Yeah.
Kimberley, I'm so interested because obviously you are a member of the world. You travel everywhere and you go to various different regions. When you started Risky Women back in 2014, where was the kind of like HQ hub, and how has it expanded regionally over the years?
Yeah, so started in Hong Kong. So I was based in Hong Kong for almost 20 years. And as I said, we sort of kicked off following the regulatory summits, which we would do in what we considered our four main centres in Asia. So Hong Kong, Singapore, Tokyo and Sydney. So we followed that conference as how we kind of started it off. Then it was obviously becoming more and more successful. So our London office heard about it. So then we started doing events in London. We then did New York. Across the US, I think we ended up doing Chicago, San Francisco, Boston. And then we did Switzerland. So we've kind of moved all over the place. I'd say now the biggest hubs are London, New York, Charlotte, where Lucy Powerman, who is our representative in the US, our president, Risky Women in the US, she's based. But we also have launched and Hong Kong and Singapore and Sydney are still active. And then we just launched in Copenhagen, which is just going fantastically well. So we've already had 2 events. We've got another 2 planned. And I just spoke to people in Lisbon, which is where I'm sitting right now. So we're hoping to do something in Lisbon and also in Bangkok. So there's continual, people contacting me saying that they want to get some events started in Bangkok or in, multiple locations. And I think it's not just the events though. I mean, it really is all the other elements that we bring to the table, which all meet that mission of connect, celebrate, champion.
Yeah, that's truly a global community, blimey. You're really getting your air miles. So that's good. Anyone listening, wherever you are, there should be hopefully a meeting or an event coming to you very, very soon.
Yeah. But otherwise, listen to the podcast. We have the online rev up sessions. So, and some of those are just absolutely fantastic. So, we've got one next week that's on negotiation skills. So we don't always do pure um, risk compliance related topics, because I think communication is really important. And next week, we're doing negotiation, how you need to negotiate. You can use AI, but how negotiation will really, how you need to think about the female perspective and what you might be getting from AI that you could use, but also how that can potentially not be the right direction of things that you should be doing from a negotiation perspective.
And I can attest to this because I am now a Risky Woman member. And Kimberly said to me, it's cheaper than a cup of coffee a day or something like that. And it's such value for money. I can't believe how many events there are, like in person in London, but also, as you say, online. And you've got the Risky Women Spotlight website. There's just lots of different channels and ways of accessing it. It's definitely worth the £30.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
You can tell I'm in marketing, can't you, Kimberly?
Exactly.
So you must have, over these years, spoken to so many incredible female leaders through Risky Women. What are some of the biggest lessons or themes that keep coming back to you through these conversations?
Yeah, look, it's really interesting. I think there are a lot. I think one thing that I would like to sort of bring it all together, though, is the fact that it's about the networks that you build. So not specifically speaking about all the different things that I hear from the women, and often certainly on Risky Women Radio, we cover, one section on their career, which I absolutely love. And I started doing that because I thought that was a great way to provide sort of mentorship and advice for the next, emerging leaders. And I'm continually inspired and amazed by a lot of the journeys that the women have taken and the things that they're doing. And, as I said, that whole ecosystem of things that are possible within the industry. But I think one thing that I just read recently of why I think it's so important to have things like Risky Women is that the World Economic Forum released its report that was called something like closing the gap in senior leadership. And of course, it had all of the usual terrible statistics that it's going to take us over 100 years for parity and da 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 da. But there was one section that really kind of caught my attention that was on networks, and it talked about professional networks being really, really powerful and really important for career success. And in some cases, they were almost invisible. And that is in terms of who's recommending you, who's referring you, who's introducing you because there's a business opportunity. And that's what I really like about the network. It is about women and men, but women helping women do business. And one thing that it was talking about was saying that men's networks had stronger ties. They were still large networks, but they were often kind of smaller, more compact, and they had stronger ties. And it was that real kind of influence piece. But it was not saying, it's not back to, we sort of think that this is some kind of social benefit. And women's networks tended to be more broad, more diverse, and that's still really valuable. but it's how do you make those broad connections become powerful, and how do you deepen those trusted relationships so that you get that introduction or influence, etc. And so that's one of the themes that I think is continually important, because I think people do talk about that in terms of, who were their mentors, who were their sponsors, how do you develop that? And so that's one of the things that I'm most passionate about in terms of networks. Is that's what Risky Women is building, is those powerful connections that really, give you advocates, get you your next client if you're a vendor or a consultant, get you investment if you're in, reg tech or fintech in the network, or help you with your next move. So I would say, that would be the thing that I'm sort of both most passionate about, but also think that the women that I speak to, do that, help each other, and give inspiration.
I really like that point, because when it comes to things like soft skills and events and networking, people can almost view it as like, yeah, it's nice to have, I haven't really got time and I really want to focus on this project or whatever, this more tangible thing. But as you say, the sponsorship and the connections you build, you've got no idea where it could potentially take you, and it is worth investing that time that you might not necessarily, you might think, oh, it's a drinks thing, it's not that important, but you don't know who could be there and where it could take you.
Yeah, and I did actually another session with a group of women in sales, and I spoke about that as well, saying that community was a commercial strategy. And I think, that's where it gets lost a bit, that, yeah, it is just going for, a casual drink, or, oh, it's another event I have to go to. And I don't think you need to necessarily, I mean, it's good to understand who's going to be there and, have a plan. But I often think, as you said, you just don't know who you're going to meet and for what connection that's going to make, or why that's going to be important. And it might not be immediate. Some of this stuff is you have to nurture your connections, and you have to build that, board of sponsors, of mentors, etc. But yeah, I do think it's important.
Also, since I've joined the Risky Women, I go to these events on my own, because I'm like, right, just gonna get on, go and leave, whatever. My confidence and my ability to just talk to strangers has gone like that, Kimberley. I'm now chatting away in my daily life. I'm like, where's this come from? And I honestly think it's from all the networking, because you just get used to it.
Yeah.
So people who are like fearful of meeting new people or needing someone to come along, like, I would say really just don't worry too much, because there's loads of people that just turn up on their own, who are really, really open and want to talk to you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree. Yeah. Like, not everyone's coming in groups and clicking together, etc. So I think it is a pretty welcoming community. So yeah, everyone, new people, come join us.
Come and chat. So, moving on to our next question, which is on leadership traits. What leadership traits do you see being the most effective for women in risk today? Any common themes?
Yeah, look, I think, there's sort of table stakes in terms of, obviously you have to have the expertise and knowledge and in the particular area that you're focused on. But I would say today, and it's probably not just in risk and compliance today, it's really for everyone, given that, change is now the only constant. It's so fast, there's so many things happening. I would say it's probably adaptability, resilience, and then it's very important, I think, to have authenticity, which gets spoken about a lot. But I think that's what really builds trust in what you're doing, and what you're saying and what you're bringing to the table. So I would say it is really those kind of three things, which is adaptability. Given the rate of change, you've got to be prepared to, shift pretty quickly in terms of what you're focused on, what you're thinking, what you know, what you're going to do, who you're connected to. And then, resilience, because there's a lot of challenges. and,
Mhm.
and then authenticity, I think, is super important.
And could we dive into a little more detail around the have I said that right? Rev ups.
Yeah.
Rev
So
ups.
rev ups, I am very conscious of not fixing women. So that's why I made them rev ups and adding to your superpowers, because I think otherwise there's a lot of things that we hear where you'll get, you know, come to this, confidence training, or, all of these things. And I think, well, I'm plenty confident. Why is this targeted at women? And so it sort of comes across like, we're not confident, we don't take risks, we're not assertive, we're not, and I don't like all of the kind of negative messages that sends. So the rev ups are this add to your superpowers concept. Is you might already have done, and I've done a lot of, for example, negotiation skills training, but every time I go to a different session or a different person, I'll pick up something that I think, wow, that's really good, that's useful. So we've done actually a lot of soft skill stuff, and I think soft skills needs to change its brand as well, because it sounds like it's soft and it's not important, but I think it's quite strategic, some of those skills that you need. And like we've done voice and gravitas with David Pope out of Hong Kong, and he's just brilliant. We did business storytelling. We've done media training, which I'd like to do again. We did negotiation skills with Black Isle Leadership out of Hong Kong as well. But now we're doing it with Lucy of Negotiate Like a Woman fame. And I think it's going to be absolutely brilliant. And we've got lots of different things set up. We still do some of the more technical sessions, around risk and compliance, as we do on the podcast as well. But I think, building on your communication skills, because you're going to have to convince people on how to get changes through, why they need to comply with whatever the regulations are, what's happening and changing, and why that's important. So, I think they're good things for us to build on.
And just going into the technical ones that you've done in the past, because I think it is important to recognise that this isn't just a women in business or women in leadership community. This is true GRC practitioners. And a lot of the discussions I've had at the networking events have been very led by like regulatory frameworks or principal risk. There's lots of genuinely really interesting golden nuggets around GRC. What are some of those sessions like?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's an interesting point, because some of the discussions that I have heard as well is people talking about, cross banks, etc., talking about what is the change in, structures around first, second, third line. How are they approaching regulators, and what was the response? What's the thinking of different regulators in different areas, whether it's MAS or, HKMA or whoever, FCA, that, there's people talking about that. So we did a cybersecurity session, which was interesting, on cyber essentials. You're making me like trawl back through the database of what sessions we've done. So that was a couple of months ago. We also have done things around like modern slavery legislation and third-party risk sessions. So yeah, a whole kind of gambit of different things. And I guess some of it we get, different members coming to us and saying, I'd like to run a session on a particular thing. And that's really also from the event perspective. We like to do a kind of bottom up, what's important in that area. That's not always going to be, I don't know kind of what the key focus should be in Copenhagen or, Bangkok. So it's really the members and the ringleaders in those areas that sort of come up with those topics.
Yes, and as you spoke to previously, the Baringa partners doing the AI series, because that's their specialism, and I could just see like the thoughts and inspirations that it was just kicking off around the room. It was really, really inspiring, really good.
I thought that was a really good session as well, and I loved how open everyone was around the table afterwards. Like, the discussion was really useful to hear the challenges and the opportunities that everyone was sort of seeing with AI, what it meant, how it was going to change the skills required, how it was going to change the way work was done. So yeah, I agree. That was a fantastic session, and we will do some kind of rev up sessions as well around AI and compliance, as so we can cover, the globe more easily.
Love that. When you look at Risky Women today, what are you most proud of in terms of its impact?
So I always say you shouldn't, have favourite children, but I guess my favourite kind of key pillars are Women to Watch and the Risky Women Right competition. So Women to Watch, I think we've now published 200 different profiles of women. The impact, beyond kind of the inspiration, that I think it's just amazing to see how many talented women there are in the industry across the globe, is, the increase in their profile and awareness. And I get lots of them sort of writing to me saying, oh, this is really great. I've, had more contacts from a business perspective, or this was terrific because I was looking for a new role. And so it really helped me in terms of getting more awareness, or, they were looking for a board position or whatever. So I think from that perspective, it's great, but I just do find it inspiring in terms of the breadth and the skills and the knowledge that's out there is fantastic. And then Risky Women Right, as well as the podcast, this was all about, even if there was a topic that was covered, really broadly, was bringing a female perspective to that area, which is often different. And I started Risky Women Right because I'd seen these statistics that was something like, 27% of experts that are quoted are women. And I was like, oh my God, that's terrible. And obviously there's a lot more that we could do in that space. Like, if I found a PR agency that would help us, et cetera, we could, get them more in the press. And I've seen some great organizations that do that. But I thought, well, a good start is we get the writing competition kicked off. And the first year, so we're coming into the third year, and it's going to be launched very soon in July. And then we get, we sort of say, maybe people have got some time over the summer if you're in the Northern Hemisphere to write a story. Or I guess if you're in Australia and it's cold and wet and horrible in the winter, you can also sit at home and write a good piece for us. But the first year we went out, and I thought, look, no one knows about this. It's going to be, we've got to get the word out there. And I said to the judges, of which we had about 6 judges, I said, it won't be much work. I mean, hopefully we get at least 15 articles. And we got 46 in our first year. So everyone was like, oh my God, I have to, score and read these 46 articles. And then last year we got 43, so pretty much in line. And we just get some amazing stories. The winner last year came from Rwanda, which was also amazing, because I was like, how on earth did we, find people in Rwanda? And Sabrina Segal was her name, and she wrote the obituary for the Risk Matrix. she has lived in and worked in a lot more countries than me. So listen to her podcast that she did. She's worked all over the world with the UN and other, institutions. And it was fascinating to hear her story. And she has also created an organization to help set up risk and compliance programs for the third sector, so for NGOs, for charities, etc. And that's another great opportunity for any, risk professional that she calls out, is to help NGOs and charities with their risk and compliance programs. So I think, there's so many. So the writing competition is coming up. So everyone who's got an amazing idea that they want to share with us, that's, gives an original perspective on a risk and compliance governance topic, then, please enter. They're the two I get most excited about, and I think have a pretty good impact.
And where can we find the articles? How many do you publish on your website? Because
We publish every article, so they're all on the website, and then we're always looking for different publications to help us. So last year, Compliance Correlated published the winners and sponsored a prize for one of those articles. So they published, and we're hopefully going to get another couple of publications to publish this year as well. So watch this space.
There you go. So you will be published even if you just enter. So that's definitely some motivation.
Correct. Yeah. And you get Risky Women membership for a year.
Wow. You've sold it, Kimberley. I'm going to get writing. Can you share a moment where you saw Risky Women genuinely changing someone's career or perspective? So you've spoken about how it's led to people getting potentially new roles or getting the spotlight on them from the Risky Women to watch. But is there anyone in your mind, like a name or someone you're like, oh yeah, I can track that, and that was because of Risky Women?
I can't think of specific names or examples. I mean, I get a lot of notes, saying, oh, thank you so much, that was amazing. And whether that's internal or external, profile raising within their firm or externally, or someone saying, oh yes, I made a connection that really, helped move a deal forward, or I think it's more the perspective thing that's been really good. I think bringing everyone together, as you say, whether that's virtually or, in real life, is this talking about opportunity, talking about how risk and compliance, creates opportunities, builds trust, that it's not the Department of No, that it, really is something, is a function that needs, a seat at the top table. And I think some of the discussions that we hear sort of change the tone, change the way that people are presenting. So I think that's all, really important. The Rev Up sessions that you've already mentioned, I think we profile a lot of women-led businesses in those functions as well, which I also think is really good. So we're bringing those businesses as well into the ecosystem, helping them with their business and getting some promotion within the Risky Women community. But they also then add some new idea, perspective, approach to the women. So I think it's a nice, circle of benefit.
Yes. On a recent episode of this podcast, we spoke to someone who said about how their mentees teach them so much, and this younger generation's new way of thinking is really influencing leaders, particularly in regards to things like AI and the rapid speed of change, we're not in that sort of hierarchical structure that we maybe had 20 years ago. It's just too different.
Yeah. Yes, it's not command and control. It's now management by influence, not authority. And yeah, look, we had what we called reverse mentoring many years ago in Thomson Reuters, which I always thought was really interesting, especially just giving sort of the more, at the time, junior staff the authority almost and the access to then feed upwards to some of these senior leaders was just brilliant if they really felt that they could say what they thought. So I think that's really true.
Yeah, that's key. The psychologically safe space that needs to happen before you get the truth said. Where do you want to take Risky Women next? Where do you see it in the next 3 to 5 years?
So, oh my God, I've always got like 1,000,001 plans, but it's sort of how you can execute and not spread yourself too thinly, really, is the thing. So I think from a tactical perspective, obviously some of it's the geography. So we're obviously already very global. As I said, we launched Copenhagen, so we've run 2 events. So it's really making sure that we build there. If we then do Lisbon and some other areas, then, making sure that we get those set up for success. For Risky Women Right, as I said, I'd love some more publications. So if anyone's listening who wants to publish the stories in their publications, that would be brilliant as well. Because I think it's really just cementing those pillars of connect, celebrate, champion. I think getting some of the, geographies to be functioning, by themselves and organising things that they really find appropriate. So, New York is a fantastic hub, and getting some more things happening there. Mm-hmm. And I think some of that might be partnerships with other networks that operate and other events. And we do some great things with a lot of the other conferences that are already being run, because my view is don't recreate the wheel, just all create collaboration, create space for everyone, and we grow the pie in that way and all achieve what we want to achieve. So I guess it's still connect, celebrate, champion is my my mission, and make sure that we're even more global, more connected, and really looking at how we amplify the importance and the opportunity of GRC.
Lovely. Are there any books, podcasts, or people who've had a meaningful impact on your career that you'd like to recommend to others?
Well, of course, I have to say Risky Women Radio. So there's some absolutely fabulous podcasts and some amazing women. And there's a few men, and I'm going to interview another man soon for the podcast. So I think that's important. And then, of course, the event that we ran just recently, which was on how to be a Chief Compliance Officer book. And Jennifer Geary, who's one of our fabulous Risky Women ambassadors, she's done the whole C-suite series. They are real, how-to Bibles of Chief Risk Officer, Chief People Officer, Chief Operating Officer. She's doing the whole C-suite. So I would recommend those as great books to read.
Lovely. And finally, what advice would you give to women early on in their risk careers?
Well, I think it has to be network self-connection.
Through Risky Women.
Through Risky Women. But I think just generally, if I was talking it to anyone, it really is, I see, where I started on that, World Economic Forum report, it just shows the power of networks for your career, but I think just more broadly of, building those connections, and creating those networks. As I said, from a business perspective, I think it is a commercial strategy. But I just think personally it is as well. Like, you'll just have a much more fulfilling life with more and more connections that can really help you with whatever it is, whether that's a travel tip or where's the best coffee.
Yeah. Yeah, you grow in confidence, and I can attest to that for sure.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Kimberley. This has been a wonderful chat about Risky Women, and you can all head over to her website, connect with Kimberley on LinkedIn, check out the podcast Risky Women Radio, and see if there's a local event coming to you soon.
So get risky with us.
Get risky with us. And then, have you got your fan?
I have got my fan somewhere. Yes, here you go.
Lots of merch. She's hot. She's very hot.
Exactly.
I love that. Kimberley, will you be at the Women and GRC Awards on Thursday, 2nd of July?
I would love to be, but no, I am not going to be there. So next year, I'll have to make sure it's in the diary.
Yes, you'll be cheering on from LinkedIn.
I will absolutely be cheering on, and I would love to be there in future events.